You guys are the first people that drove a Model X across the country?
We think we are.
And people would come up and just be like, what is this? They don't know anything about Tesla. They don't know anything about the Model X. It's as if we landed from another planet.
I'm at the first ever Formula E race. Coming around the last turn of the last lap, the guy clips his tire and flips the car in the air. It was the first race, huge crash, made international news. SpaceX also had a pretty exciting moment. Did you guys watch the Starship launch?
It's the largest thing that's ever been that high. This isn't a satellite. Like, this is humongous.
Welcome to XTRAordinary, the most extraordinary podcast in the world. Today we have some awesome guests, Zac and Jesse from the famed Now You Know YouTube channel.
Thanks for having us on,
today, guys.
Thank you, Teague.
Good to see you guys.
Good to see you.
So we were all hanging out last night at the Lithium Lounge.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
That was really fun.
A little party.
Yeah.
Spence was the DJ too.
Yeah.
Go! Your boy does it all.
Yeah.
Yep.
The modern day Renaissance man.
Yeah.
I also wasn't booked as the DJ. I just walk around with my music everywhere. So I just popped it out and it just worked.
That's because there was another cute DJ.
It just worked out. Yeah, it worked out. Yep.
That was strategically planned for you. You guys have fun last night, though?
Yeah, that was awesome.
It really was fun.
Nice. I'm glad.
I like the giant dancing robots. That was cool.
Yeah, that might have also been Spence.
A man of many talents.
Yeah.
So you guys have one of the most popular YouTube channels covering the energy transition and clean tech. A lot of Tesla on there. A sub-segment called Tesla Time News. How'd you guys start the YouTube channel?
We first started it, there's kind of a what I would call, true channel. And that was just doing stuff that we thought was cool. But then right early in 2016, Zac took delivery of his Model X. And
2013?
2016.
2016.
Was like, I think it's like 186 off the line. So it was like, it was really cool. And we just loved driving it around using superchargers. At one point we drove, we live in Massachusetts, so we drove the whole Cape, which we'd never done before in any car. We drove all the way to Provincetown and drove all the way back. And we're like, well, that's cool. And then you kind of zoom out on the Tesla map and you see all these red dots going across the country. And at that time, there were 3 routes across the country. There was the middle route, the southern route, and the northern route. And we said, let's hit both of them. And we said
both out of the 3?
Yeah. So we said, we'll go from Boston to San Francisco. Then we'll go from San Francisco to Seattle, and then we'll go from Seattle to Montreal, and then we'll go from Montreal back to Boston.
Whose idea was it?
I think it came to us at the same exact moment.
Okay.
I think we were like, where else can we go?
Neither of you were like, you're crazy, and had to convince the other one.
We
kind of thought we'd get stuck in Kansas or something. Like, cause we went to like the largest ball of twine, and like that was kind of hard to reach at the time.
I don't know what the largest ball of twine is.
Dude, you haven't traveled enough then.
It's like a big ball. I mean,
do you know what the ball of twine is?
I've heard about it, but I don't know if I've seen
Teague,
it.
I thought you were a world traveler.
I thought
apparently not.
7 continents, but you didn't see the
saw a
world's
billboard
biggest ball
for
of
it.
twine.
I definitely saw a billboard for it.
Yeah, so it's like right in between 2 superchargers, because at the time there was just like about 100 miles apart. There's 2 superchargers, and then you have to go like up. And we knew that we could make it between the 2 superchargers because obviously Tesla thought about that.
Right.
We were worried that we weren't going to make it to the biggest ball of twine.
I actually don't even know what twine is. It like a
string?
Like string.
The ball of string.
Know how it ended up.
Thick string.
Ball of
Yeah,
string.
it's like airy string.
It's
We'll
like
cut that into the edit.
Big old ball of twine.
So
for those that don't know, the ball of twine.
So wait a minute, you have the 186th Model X. So is it safe to say that you guys are the first people that drove a Model X across the country?
We think we are.
I think so.
Cool.
Nobody's come yelling.
Certainly,
I've told the story a lot, and nobody's come, saying that we're wrong.
Okay.
So yeah, I think, and I mean, it was so cool because obviously the Model X has the Falcon Wing doors, so we would pull up to some place, in the middle of nowhere and throw up the doors because we put our jackets in the back so that way we'd have to, we have to open the doors while we're supercharging.
Exactly.
And I mean, it's as if we landed from another planet. People would come up and just be like, what is this? They don't know anything about Tesla. They don't know anything about the Model X.
They just know twine.
They know know twine and that this car has cool doors. Cool. And then I'm just blowing their mind every 5 seconds. I'm like, it's fully electric, goes 0 to 60 in 3.3 seconds. I can supercharge on it. This is a supercharger. Charges up at 150 kilowatts, which was a lot at the time. Yeah. And it was just and I mean, to me, that was so cool. It was such a cool story to tell. And part of the journey of that is and how we did the YouTube channel was we recorded every day. So I set up like a camera that was like suction cupped to the windscreen. Cool. And I like put a camera on it so it'd be like steady and I could track it, which was a waste of time. Which I should have just held a little camera, but like I don't know what I was doing. Right. And so we would record, and the first day we recorded probably about 2 or 3 hours of footage, and we got to the first hotel, and we dragged all the things over into Dropbox, and it started downloading, and it said it would take, I think, like 5 days. We're like, oh shit, we have to be really smart with our shots, because we basically wanted to upload all the footage, have our editors back home edit it up, and put it out the next day.
You already had editors at this point? Like, what were
we had it.
What were you guys doing before?
We had another channel before it. We had a recording studio because I'm a music publisher and own a recording studio. So we had this great idea. We thought it was the best idea. We thought we'd have a YouTube channel where we have bands come in, record them, interview them, and then they would do all this great marketing for us, and the channel would blow up.
Okay.
But if you've ever met a band before, it's kind of by definition that they suck at marketing themselves.
Yeah. Sure.
That's what they have managers for. And of course, we were dealing with smaller bands who don't have managers. So their socials weren't like super strong, in 2015. So that wouldn't.
So when they put it on their MySpace or whatever, we get 6 views.
It didn't really go too far. So
but we learned a lot.
We learned a lot. We learned a lot about editing. We made very complicated videos. We would record with like 15 cameras, like a live session. And
put GoPros on the bass.
Yeah, I'd have a GoPro on the bass. You'd see the fingers of the bass guitar. It's like, blah, 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 it's cool, but
bass players loved it.
Exactly.
Like, wait a minute. Exactly.
All 18 of them.
Yeah.
So that didn't go too far, but so we had some editors, and we just figured, we wanted to share this experience of supercharging and, showing that electric vehicles were a real possibility.
That it could be done.
Because I think at the time, even in 2016, and I know you'd already had your Model S for 3 years by that point, but I think a lot of people were just still under the impression that electric cars were golf carts. They didn't have enough range. You couldn't go for, a long distance trip with it. And so every night we would send the footage back. They'd edit it up. A stupid way to do it. We should have just recorded everything, brought it home, sat down and edited it. But we decided to do it that way. Very Casey Neistat. We thought it was super cool at the time.
Casey Neistat's awesome, by the way.
Yeah, and I mean, at the time, it was at his height, and we were just like, you have to do it. You got to do a daily vlog. That's the only way to do anything. So that's what we did, and we came home, and I think we had. We did this whole trip, 25 states, 75 superchargers, 2 provinces of Canada. I saw more of the country on that trip than I've ever seen. It was amazing.
Cool.
And, at the time, the supercharger network wasn't even that strong. So we would rate each supercharger that we went to would be like, it's close to bathrooms, or like it has a really pretty view, so that makes it go up or whatever. Or, it's a good restaurant nearby.
What was the number one supercharger?
Ooh.
Oh yeah, there was a couple of really nice ones, like the one in Idaho near the falls. You could bungee jump off the bridge. I thought that was great.
Pretty good.
Wow.
Pretty good.
We didn't,
but we saw people doing it.
Cool.
And then there was one in Green River, Utah, which we gave a high number to because if you didn't get to that one, you were stuck in Utah.
That one didn't exist. You wouldn't have made it. Yeah, you're just kind of driving through.
That had the largest watermelon slice. Remember that?
I think they still have it.
At this point in time, how many superchargers were there? This is 2016.
Not many.
300 in the country.
Yeah, and how many are there today? It's like I think they just hit 50,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, 50,000 stalls in the United States.
Right.
I think we're at what, like a couple thousand?
Yeah, a couple thousand.
And they're all packed whenever you get there.
They can be. In
the one
California.
in Green River, Utah is still pretty empty. But,
okay. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
I know the ones in Austin are usually pretty busy.
LA, they're smashed.
Yeah.
Like always a wait. It's always a wait.
Really? Yeah.
But so that was an amazing trip. And so we got home and we had 300 subscribers. And we were like, wow, that would fill like a smallish auditorium. We're really getting our message out. And so the whole time we were doing this thing, because we had the Model X and no one had seen it, if there was a Model S owner or just people walking around, they'd want to come over and hear about the Model X, hear about our road trip. Again, it wasn't that common, just because there weren't that many superchargers. And so we had Tesla Time, we called it. You'd go to the supercharger. Teague, maybe you remember this, back in the old days, back when there was just Model S and X owners, you'd hit the supercharger and you'd all get out of your cars and talk. I feel like
talk about how cool you are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like
one of the few.
I feel like a grandfather being like, we used to get out of our cars and we'd talk to each other. But like, that's what we did. Yeah. So we called that Tesla Time, and nobody knew what was going on in the Tesla space. Like, it was all rumors. It was like, oh, Elon Musk, he's like has a rocket company, and like they're gonna like make a cheaper version of the Model S and stuff, and it's gonna be called maybe the Model 3 or something. Yeah. Nobody knew anything, and including us for the most part. And so when we got home, we wanted to kind of bring that Tesla Time into our channel, because we couldn't obviously do a road trip all the time. Like we had work to do. Right. So we did a weekly show where we just kind of cover the latest news. And I think at the time it was all just like,
it was hard to find news.
Yeah, it was like, oh, BMW is coming out with a plug-in hybrid. It has 20 miles of electric range. I think that sucks, but what do you guys think? Like, it wasn't, it was just like, there wasn't much news at all. But we kept doing it every single week, and we have done it every single week for the past 392 weeks in a row.
Boom.
So we have not missed a week. And so it's been crazy, because now we went from being kind of enthusiasts about like Tesla and stuff, but when it's interesting, if you cover something every week for 7 years, you become like a little bit of an expert about it. So it's weird. There's no point in the transition where there's like a moment where somebody goes like, and now you're an expert. You just sort of you're slowly building up all of this stuff, and you're hearing about all these, you
crossed the 10,000 hours.
I think so.
Like that's the expert.
When we hit episode 365, and I realized that I could watch an episode every day of a year, I was like, oh crap, that's a lot.
You know what's cool? Two things I just thought of. One thing I just thought of is that you guys kind of started your company similar to how I started Energy X.
Yeah, actually.
On a trip.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Like
with Tesla being really high in the mind.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, I think you guys know Energy X started based on my trip to Bolivia and me thinking about this huge lithium reserve. Your guys' YouTube channel started based on this cross-country trip and how impactful travel can be in opening people's eyes to possibilities and like thinking about new ideas.
And both were first principles. I mean, you basically said, hey, why can't we do this with lithium? And we said, hey, can we actually prove that you can drive across the country? Because both things were basically pushed back against at the time. They were like, you can't do that. But we both went out and said, like, can you?
Yeah. You know what also is cool is that I think that you guys are a perfect example of what you said about consistency. You actually started your channel before I started Energy X. I started Energy X in 2018. You guys started in 2016, but 300 and how many you said
392
episodes.
Yeah.
What's the statistic about the top like 1% of podcasts?
I think once the deal is there's so many podcasts, but it's just hard for people once they do the work to stay consistent.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to do it, but then they realize, wait a minute, okay, then you got to do this, then you got to edit, then you got to do, then you have your whole lives. So after you cross episode 20, I believe you're already in the top 1% of people that are doing it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So,
I think it was something like that. It could have been 20 episodes is the top 10% and 100 episodes is the top 1%. And you guys are 394 episodes. I mean, that consistency is incredible.
Right.
How, like, what's the secret? Is there a secret to that consistency?
Yes. Making it easier and easier for yourself.
Okay.
As much as you can. We started off and Tesla Time News was us driving around in the Model X. So usually it was me driving, and Zac would have like a piece of paper with the like 6 news items on it, and he'd be reading them off, and I'd be busy driving. Also, we had to set up all our cameras that are all running off of batteries and stuff like that. So about 20 or so minutes into the recording, we'd have to like stop, change out batteries, fix the lights, fix the camera, do all sorts of work.
And I'd be like, "Why aren't you responding well to my questions?"
Yeah,
He's
so
like, because I'm driving.
I'm driving. I'm like, is this guy gonna cut me off? And I'm like, oh yeah, you know, crazy Tesla or whatever. Like I'm like trying to respond. So we eventually just did it parked in the car.
Fair.
Still had to set up all the lights and all the cameras and do all the batteries.
But we live in New England, so it would get freaking hot or freaking cold.
One or the other. One episode a year would be.
You can curse on this, episode.
Temperature. All right, cool. It was.
You only
when
start
we
cursing from
curse,
now?
it's more work for our editors. So.
Yeah.
I know, yeah. It's preconditioned into us. So then we were like, oh, we should have like a set, you know, in our house. So went through a couple of iterations on that, getting it to where like we'd have to set up the camera every time, and now we just have permanent setup.
Nice.
Don't have to break anything down.
Smart switches.
Don't have to.
Yeah.
I just walk into the room, say, you know, okay, Googlerini. I'm not gonna. You're watching a podcast. I know what happens. You know, turn on all the lights. All the lights. You know, turn on. Pop a card in the camera. We're ready to roll. I have a little remote control.
It does
turn on all the cameras.
Nice.
Like, everything.
Automation.
It has to be. It has to be almost as easy as possible because otherwise it's so hard.
Yeah.
So I asked that question because this is our 8th episode.
Nice. We're number 8. Wow.
Hey,
We're getting there.
You're probably already past 50% at this point, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
Pretty
Working
much,
your way up.
Yep. But consistency, I mean, we have a little ways to go.
Yeah. 300.
And 86.
We'll get there.
386 more episodes
To catch up. We'll get there.
But by that point, you know,
and
we'll have a few more.
Hopefully we have. Hopefully we have.
We'll never
most
catch.
by then.
Yeah, we'll never catch you.
Yeah.
We can just hope to get to 394.
It's about the journey.
It's all about
true.
the journey.
And was it called Now You Know in the very beginning, or at what point? So did Tesla Time News and Now You Know happen at the same time?
We actually started the channel a little bit before then, and we were doing fun stuff like, you know, ballistics gel and vermicomposting, all sorts of weird stuff. But then, the Tesla
Compost
stuff.
challenges.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Tesla just took over. It was just became such a hobby.
And it was way more popular than
It's just so
some of
interesting
the
and such a loyal following.
Yeah, so you had that foresight to understand like this is gonna blow up, and it did blow up, and you kind of crafted your channel
You could
around.
say we had foresight. I think that we just were just interested in it, and we were willing to sink some time and money into it. It obviously did work out, but like I didn't think I'd be sitting here in 7 years from then. Like,
What did you think? Did you have expectations about where it could go?
not really. I just knew that like I wanted people to know about Tesla because it was just this secret thing. Tesla had the referral program, and so that was like it was neat because, you know, they were so, you know, not traditional. They weren't running ads. They're still barely running any ads, you know, so it was like you had to kind of be in the know to know about it. And we were like, well, I mean, more people should know about this, obviously.
We would do EV events, and when people got in the cars, we saw them actually, their lives changed. Like we saw a moment in their life, which I had seen in the recording studio industry. I was lucky that when you come into a recording session, for most people, that's like one of your top 10 days in your life, right? Because I remember it as a kid when I had my first session. It's like you're in the coolest room in the world, and you're making music that you can take home. So people would go home just changed. And the same thing would happen in the EV. They'd get into the Tesla, we'd blow their pants off driving or whatever. They'd get out of the car like, oh my God, I just experienced something I never knew existed.
Right.
And I feel like we just wanted to get that to more people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we went to a lot of EV shows, especially in the beginning, just because, when we really believed the mission, and it is still a great way to change people's minds. I say that there's like this like acceleration activated switch in people's heads. Like there's like a light switch with like a little weight on it, and if you can accelerate their head back far enough, it'll activate that switch, and they won't be able to turn it off.
Yeah.
You'll just be like, oh, I get it. Like it happens I can just see it happen with people. I love getting people in a Tesla or any electric car with enough power, and you just floor it, and then they go like, "Oh, of course,
it's faster than
it's faster.
It's got power."
Like, I already told you go 0 to 60 and whatever, but you didn't believe me.
Seeing is believing.
What are some of the common misconceptions that maybe the gas drivers are just maybe confused about?
So many. Just range. I mean, right. I heard that in the winter it doesn't work. I heard that you can't charge it. I heard that they break. And you just have to kind of walk them through each one. And I feel like you have to do it multiple times because it doesn't stick. They've just picked it up in the ether somewhere.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we talk a lot about FUD on our channel, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And that is just constantly in every news story. There's a little bit of it planted.
It's like human nature, FUD.
And cognitive dissonance. Yeah, it's just so hard if you've done something your whole life one way, and then somebody comes in and is like, "Oh, everything you've done is stupid." You don't want to like really admit that you were wrong the whole time. So it's really hard to change people's minds. So they're going to latch on to whatever it is. I love the argument of like, doesn't your electric bill go up? It's like,
how much does the electric bill go up?
It depends on where you live.
1/4 your gas bill going down
significantly.
Right? Because it's like, and I see that argument happen all the time where people will go and focus on one thing about electric vehicles, and they'll completely ignore the opposite, which is like, where does the gasoline come from? Or like, how much does the gasoline cost? Happens all the time, and it's super frustrating because somebody will again focus on, "Whoa, doesn't your electric bill go up?" And it's like,
Well,
but I don't have to.
Another one is the business you're in. They'll be like, "But I heard there's no way we'll have enough batteries."
Right.
And it's like, well, there weren't enough cell towers when cell phones first came out.
Yeah,
and I thought that'll be impossible too.
To that.
Right.
So we have a lot to talk about today, but the journey from 300 subscribers to now 300,000. Is that how many are you guys at?
Yeah.
How'd you were there big moments where you gained, I don't know, like thousands of subscribers, or it was just
we were like consistently gaining like 2,000 or 3,000 a month. And so I thought when we hit 100,000 back in like 2019 or something, I thought, wow, this is amazing.
Yeah,
but it has kind of leveled off, and I feel like that's also because of the YouTube algorithm. It's such a weird algorithm, and you can't control it. So I'm actually kind of glad that it's not 1 million or 2 million or something. I love that we have a really dedicated fan base that kind of likes what we do.
Yeah.
But I'm glad that we aren't.
I mean, so thinking about trying to grow your business from 300 to 1 million, like obviously that'd probably be a good thing, right? Do you think about ways that you can do that maybe like, I mean, at least to me, you guys are essentially the go-to source for Tesla news. Which is pretty cool. There's somebody called the Everyday Astronaut who's like, who's like the go-to for SpaceX. Would you want to start like a segment or the equivalent of Tesla Time News, but for space or maybe other categories to continue to grow the overall you
already know our business model. I mean, we've been really excited about e-bikes.
Okay.
Which I know are not like as exciting as electric cars, although in some ways to me, they are. I think I got on my first e-bike back in like 2018 or something like that. And it's kind of a piece of crap compared to some of the newer e-bikes that are out. So we started a channel reviewing those.
Cool.
I think we've reviewed like over 100 different forms of e-mobility, from e-scooters, e-longboards, e-bikes.
Everything E.
Everything.
As long as it's got an electric motor and an e-battery.
That's cool. I think the good thing about what you guys have done is you've built such a niche audience that's really important these days. Like you said, like that's what you want. That's what anyone wants.
Yeah, and I think that the fun part is that it doesn't necessarily have to be niche. This isn't like super esoteric stuff. This is stuff that is, buying an EV, you don't have to necessarily be that out there to do that. It used to be. And we've met a lot of those guys at EV car shows where they like either converted a car like back in the 90s or something, and you're like, whoa, you can buy a Tesla now, you know that, right? Like, But I think that, now just being able to go out and buy like a Model Y and just like most people barely even think about it is really great.
Another channel we're doing is Now We Build. We just converted a 1975 midget to electric.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Probably
what's a midget?
Oh, MG Midget's like the smallest car you've ever seen. It's like a British
It's a
car.
British...
and that was the stupidest car to choose because there's no space for the batteries or for anything.
So it's like a little British sports car. It's kind of bridges the gap between like a convertible car and like a golf not a golf cart, go-kart. It's very small. You have to drive kind of with your elbow hanging out the side.
Wow, that's small.
It's
so
really
smaller than
small.
like an old school Mini
Teague
Cooper.
wouldn't fit in the driver's seat.
I wish we had a TV here and I could pull up the midget.
Yeah. Jamie, pull that up.
Yeah. Once we build the permanent
Yes.
XTRAordinary studio.
That sounds good.
yeah, that'll be
Yeah, we'll get that.
But yeah, it's got this big steering wheel because like they didn't have power steering back then. So you have this giant steering wheel, this tiny cabin. You're hanging your elbow out. You're kind of nudging the guy next to you. And so we converted that one. We used I think 5 Tesla Model S modules. So normally
the back of the car is like
really low.
And that was a great experience.
Is that called a low rider?
kind of
Super low rider.
You know who I have to introduce you guys to is my buddy Mate Rimac.
yeah.
Yeah. So I met Mate. One of my prior businesses to EnergyX was this athletic apparel company called First Round Athletics. And somehow we ended up getting the official apparel sponsorship for Formula E.
Oh, wow.
Back in 2012.
That's awesome.
And this was actually, I think, before I bought my Tesla in 2013. And we were the official apparel partner. And Mate had his electric car company called Rimac, which is his last name. And he had built the Concept One, which he had one prior electric car that was like a retrofitted BMW. It was like a green BMW. And then he built this Concept One, which is like a supercar. Mm-hmm. And he was the official race director of Formula E. So like before they started the race, they would drive his like supercar around the track. And so I met him now 12 years ago, and both our companies only ended up lasting 1 or 2, maybe 3 years with Formula E. But it's pretty crazy to think that like at least Formula E started that for me, and that's when I met Mate. And now to see what Mate has gone on to do,
Bugatti.
Yeah, he literally owns Bugatti now. So
like, wow.
So Rimac merged with Bugatti, and it's called Bugatti Rimac. This kid is 38 years old, 39,
so smart.
And he's the CEO of Bugatti now.
Solid.
And his Rimacs actually go faster than Bugattis.
Wow.
Like, imagine if someone had told you that 12 years ago that like someday he's going to own Bugatti. But, that's not possible.
I mean, I can't believe that I didn't see that like coming. I had the chance to invest in Rimac back in 2012. And he was, at that time, I want to say, a 26-year-old kid who had built this supercar. Like, I mean, that is so impressive. Yeah. And he did it all in Croatia.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Which is like not known for really anything.
Well, and we converted our car 10 years after he did it. It was still hard.
Yeah.
Like it was by now. Like, we were able to get like motors and batteries like off a Tesla. He probably didn't have just components that you could go buy like on eBay or whatever. Yeah. So that's even more impressive.
So I went out and I visited his factory in Croatia, which was cool. But that is definitely something that you guys should do. I'll make that introduction.
Him. Yeah,
that's cool.
And then
I totally admire him.
Just got to give me a shout out on the episode.
Totally.
Sounds good.
We'll do.
Wait a minute. Is Formula E electronic racing?
Yeah.
All electric.
I never heard about that.
Yeah, they go city to city, and what's so nice is because they're quiet.
What kind of speeds are we talking about?
Pretty fast.
Dude. Yeah.
And how long are these races?
Do you remember the old formula? They would have races in cities, but then less and less cities wanted them there because they had gas engines and they're loud and stuff. Yeah. So now they're in all the major cities.
So it's just quiet.
It's still racing. Loud. I mean,
where's the noise? The wind.
It's like a buzzing kind of noise.
It's like the gearbox and they sound more like
bees.
You hear mostly the tires and the gearbox, so it sounds mostly like TIE fighters. Like like that's what it really sounds like coming around the track.
Cool.
It's No, it's really cool.
Are there more accidents in Formula E or any other formula?
A little bit more because they have to use road tires, or at least the last race that I went to, they had to use road tires as opposed to like racing slicks. So
there's more accidents.
It was a lot more
that's
slippery.
I think people like
people
the
like
accidents.
Yeah, they do.
So I have another story. So I'm at the first ever Formula E race.
Okay.
The inaugural race is in Beijing.
All right.
And they let you drive it around. No.
I wish. And coming around the last turn of the last lap, it's like a dead heat, and this guy like kind of is very aggressively trying to cut somebody off and win. The guy clips his tire and flips the car in the air. It was the first race, huge crash, made international news. And, you know, not to say Formula E wouldn't have been successful without that, but
Good marketing.
Yeah, no. Yeah, it might have been planned.
For sure.
But
Right, because in the early days they had to switch out the
Hope it
cars
survived.
because the batteries weren't powerful.
yeah,
enough.
so they had two cars. So it was about an hour, which is about the same time as a Formula One race.
Mm-hmm.
But the first car would do, you know, its thing, and there would be two drivers, and then the second car would take the last lap, and it was a team.
Oh, okay.
effort.
So that's how they do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, now when they end the races, like you're watching and they're like down to 1% battery, and a lot of it is battery management. Like, oh, you could floor it, but you can't.
Yeah, it's part of the strategy.
Yeah, it's kind of cool.
Interesting.
That would actually be another really interesting episode. I can introduce you to Alejandro Agag, the CEO of Formula E.
Oh, sweet.
And now he's actually gone on. So he's now actually the executive chairman of Formula E, and there's another CEO, because he has gone on to start Extreme E. Have you heard about that?
Yes.
Yes.
Which is
Like
so
Baja racing, like not necessarily
Yeah.
Baja, but like off-road, crazy,
Rally cars, kinda.
Yeah.
it's no, dude.
Yeah, not really the
It's
same.
a cross between a monster truck
What?
and a Formula One race
Yeah.
car.
Yeah.
Okay.
Into one.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's fair. That's
Yeah,
how you
very
get gas
And
fans to come
and
over.
they do these races in the extreme. So like in Antarctica
Wow.
or in the Sahara Desert.
Okay, cool.
And they're like obviously like off-road tracks.
Right.
So he started that several years ago, and then now he started E1, which is electric hydro boat racing.
Right. I heard
Super
about that.
boats.
Yeah, because like Tom Brady has a team or something.
Tom Brady has a team. Yep. I think several celebrities have teams. Maybe Lewis Hamilton has a team. Tom Brady has a team. And then what he did was combined the three sports, so Formula E, Extreme E, and E1, and called it E360, and just got a big investment from PIF, the Public Investment Fund from Saudi Arabia. So now they're backing this whole
right up their alley.
electric ecosystem of racing with like some of the biggest investment backers in the world.
Yeah. But I mean, the coolest part to me about the electric revolution is that Tesla sells race cars. I don't know if everybody knows this, but you can buy a Model 3 Performance. And so one of the things that Zach and I did at one point was we'd been hearing a lot about Pike's Peak, and there have been some amazing electric race cars that have gone up Pike's Peak. And we were like, I think a Model 3 Performance could do it. So we found a driver, and we crowdfunded a racing team. We sold stickers, little 3-inch by 3-inch stickers with people's names on them that we put on the car, and then basically got somebody to donate their Model 3, just like
Dave.
Dave.
Dave's the man.
Yeah, so
we had to put a roll cage in it. So like,
Legend.
other than that, completely unmodified.
Yep.
Same suspension, we didn't add any fans or anything. We didn't even put the noisemaker on it, which we were supposed to do for Pikes Peak because it's an electric car and like people could be walking across the road. So we just zip tied the horn on. So it's just, the horn was just
the entire time.
beep,
Hilarious.
going up the whole mountain. And we did a lot of testing beforehand. We worked with Kyle Connor from Out of Spec Motoring. We got to use his track for a little bit, and so we did a lot of testing to figure out like what we needed to do,
Tires and all that.
tires and thermal management, which was the biggest thing. And so we were going up against Randy Popes. Like we'd been working on this for like 6 months. Halfway through, like 3 months before the race, we hear that Randy Popes, the amazing race car driver was going to be competing in another Model 3 Performance. And we were like, shit. But
please tell me you got to race him in yours.
I wasn't driving. We had a professional driver.
We're not that crazy.
And
How
because
did that guy audition? You just the professional driver?
he had done Pikes Peak before.
Okay.
Yeah, not like he's a good race car driver, kind of a crazy guy.
That's making it better.
Which is you have to be
What
crazy.
you want.
You have to be crazy
Yeah.
to race up Pikes Peak. It's one of the most dangerous races in the world because so yeah, like I think during race week, Randy Popes like crashed his Model 3. They had to rebuild it. They did, to their credit. They completely had to rebuild the Model 3 that he crashed. Our racer didn't do that. And then because the Model 3 can accelerate so much, but you're going up like 5,000 feet of elevation, like in the span of 5 minutes, you're using a hell of a lot of energy, and that builds up a lot of heat in the battery pack. So we had to do a lot of testing on the track to see like how far you could push it before, what would the car do once you've heated up the battery pack to the point where it's a little bit dangerous.
How much cooling is available?
Right. We didn't add any cooling because we couldn't in our particular category. You could have just put a bigger radiator on it with a bigger fan and been able to like do Pikes Peak way faster. But we had to basically lift, like we had to slow down to from certain sections, and we were able to actually beat Randy.
Let's go.
Yeah, by like
champion.
8 seconds or something. It
8 seconds.
It was insane because when he was going up, he was flooring it, and so he got about 2/3 of the way up the mountain, and you can see in his video the whole battery turns orange.
Oh shit!
On the track mode, it limits his power, and he's going like, "What the
Does
fuck?"
the car auto regulate when that happens to slow it down?
Yeah,
to avoid fire.
Everything. So that was really cool. It was neat, but I mean, the time that we got was like really freaking good. We beat a lot of gas cars up that hill.
Yeah.
Wow.
In a completely stock Model 3, like roll cage. Nicer-ish tires, but like
that makes it heavier.
They weren't slicks. Like they weren't racing slicks or anything. So that was insane.
So speaking of race cars and continuing on Tesla, I know you guys are very high on the list for Cybertruck, but are you also on the list for the Roadster?
Yes. So we
and you have the SpaceX version.
We definitely want to get the SpaceX version because who knows if that thing will be able to fly or hover or whatever. Like
fly.
Well, and so we so the referral program, because we were YouTubers at the time and we tried to follow strictly to the guidelines of how the referral program was supposed to work. We were able to like earn Tesla Roadsters, so we should earn.
You earned
earned them 6 of them.
You earned 6 free Tesla Roadsters
on paper. This is all on paper. You know what things are like.
I know
on
this
paper.
guy Dave who did it solid for you. Gonna give me a Tesla Roadster.
Let's see, it's one for each day of the week. Yeah.
I'm gonna hold you to that.
So that should be really fun when that day comes.
And speaking of race cars, the numbers, at least that have been discussed on that, are just mind-boggling.
Right.
Mind-blowing. Yeah.
0 to 60
in under a second. I mean, so
under a second.
Under a second.
Yeah.
What? No.
I mean,
no.
I got to ride. I keep chatting Jesse because I got to actually be in the next gen Roadster for that launch day, and we did 0 to 60 in 2 seconds, and it was my camera broke. I was holding 2 cameras.
One of them just talked about the neck switch.
Well, I was ready for it. I mean, I had a fast car, but I wasn't ready for that, and that was
and neither was the camera. Literally, the camera, we had it on a little tripod and just spun itself off with the the camera wasn't like perfectly balanced over like where you're screwed in because it's normally sitting on a tripod. Who cares? It's not expecting lateral G forces in the 1.8 range. So like. I guess we should have like turned it 90 degrees and then like bounced it to really test out to make sure if it would work. So yeah, we were trying to get this great shot and it just points in the wrong direction because it was that fast.
And I just started screaming like a little girl.
Right. And that's 2 seconds.
That's double
1.99 or whatever. So now we're going less than 2.
1 second.
It's gonna be really stupid. Like it's so great from a marketing perspective.
Yeah.
Because I mean Tesla has always had this amazing marketing push where they would just trounce cars on the track on straightaway, and I think that a lot of people, quarter mile is pretty important in terms of muscle car American heritage. And I think it was always really smart for Tesla to just be like, efficiency is one thing, but just putting the competition in the
I can't wait
fucking
to
dust
see
is another.
the Roadster, which will obviously be a commercially available car, versus the Formula E race car.
Even a Formula One
Even a
race car.
Formula One race car.
Even, I mean, because some people talk about like, oh, there's this specific rally car that could do, 0 to 60 in like 1.5, on gravel. And you're like, that's cool and all. But yeah, when you put rockets in the back of it, it's different.
I wonder if the new Fast and the Furious is just going to be all Tesla Roadsters.
That's it's really
Dominic Toretto.
It's just hard because you can't do the downshift.
Yeah, he doesn't need it.
When they're racing and they'll downshift like 6 times in a row, and you're like, are you in like first gear? Are you in reverse right now? Like, how are you going faster?
Gonna race for pink slips.
Yeah.
Oh, it's all about family.
You're just like,
what's your time on the quarter mile?
That's great. You're gonna be like, I don't even know what the quarter mile on that thing's gonna be.
But speaking about the SpaceX version of the Roadster, SpaceX also had a pretty exciting moment 2 days ago.
I know.
Did you guys watch the Starship launch?
Yes.
Yeah, we were on the plane and we were watching like rebroadcasts and stuff of it. I mean, seeing the plasma coming off it, I was just, my mind was blown. Like, wait, there's a Starlink on the Starship feeding back this live and it's working
in HD.
I know.
There's so many mind blowing moments. And then you go over to your Google feed or whatever, and the news is just like, Tesla fails, SpaceX fails. And you're like, were we watching the same thing? Like,
yeah.
Right. It's the largest thing that's ever been that high before. It's the biggest besides the moon. And an asteroid that'll come in from time to time.
Yeah.
The biggest thing that's ever come off of this planet since the moon smashed into or whatever. It's in the air. It's going around. The fucking Earth, and everyone's like, they didn't even do it. It's like
that's incredible.
This isn't a satellite. Like, this is humongous.
I just thought this would be an America moment. Like, everyone would just be like, America.
It kind of slipped by a little bit.
Why though?
I think there's a number of reasons. I think that one, but they've been just waiting just to launch it, because they've been held back by so many different federal agencies. So I think that the moment they got the chance, they wanted to go test it, which meant that there wasn't a lot of build-up or fanfare. I think that people in the know kind of knew that this was happening, but it's not exactly the same as the first Falcon Heavy launch, where we kind of had a date for a little bit, and everybody knew that they were going to be shooting a Roadster off into space, and that was
cool.
A moment. That was a really cool moment. I loved that moment where you get to see Starman in his Roadster. We put together a whole playlist for that, because I was just like, this is sick.
You know what would be cool? So this was the third launch of the Starship, right?
Yes.
The first launch was May, I think, ish of last year, 2023. The second launch was November. I actually went to that launch, and it was one of the coolest things. It was one of the most inspirational moments of my life. The viewing point is 5 miles down the coastline in South Texas on the beach, and you can feel this shockwave hit you when it's launching. And it's deafening from that far away. But seeing how big this thing is go up into space, that one exploded. I think it was 63 miles above Earth. But that one completed stage separation. This one completed stage separation, and the booster fell back, lost the booster, I think, just before it crashed into the ocean. And then the ship actually got into orbit, first one into orbit. But what would be cool for the next one is if so they're testing the door. And I think this one was testing the door that lets out the Starlink satellites.
It's like a little floppy disk port.
You know what they call it? You know what they call it?
No.
The Pez door.
Yeah.
You remember Pez?
Yeah.
Shoot out.
Yeah.
That's how the
I
Starlink
do want
shoot out.
Starship Pez dispenser.
Pretty
Starship Pez dispenser.
We have the Starlink or the Starship torch.
Yeah.
The lighter. So you can just it makes it look like but
do they have
tight.
a Starship Pez dispenser? You just came up with that idea. You're saying
you gotta do
I mean,
that.
if they have the door.
Yeah. What would be cool for one of the next launches? Elon needs to launch a Cybertruck with Spaceman.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
To go meet up with Roadster.
Yes.
Pretty good.
That would be awesome.
That would be
It would,
cool.
and the cool part is, I bet that the Cybertruck would probably last a little bit longer in space than the the Roadster.
True. Would you guys be down to go to space?
I would.
Definitely, yeah.
That was definitive. For
Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
sure.
Absolutely.
Do you,
Yes.
well, I mean, do you remember when Elon was doing the I think there's like 9 artists that are going to go around the moon.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we kind of joked on our channel for a few weeks of like, I'm an artist, like
You
guys
sure.
kind of are.
I'll do whatever
Yeah,
you want.
for sure.
I'll play a song.
But also,
guys
you
kinda
guys
are
are kind of like
artists.
journalists as well, which is it's a form of art and it's storytelling, which is
Yeah.
so important.
He already picked the 9, so
Well,
we
and
can stop
also-
pushing. But
Also, Zac
When
and
is
Jesse, which is 2 seats, or Everyday Astronaut.
Yeah.
He already has the astronaut the title. So
Yeah.
no, I'm really
yeah.
excited for Tim to be able to go do that. And
Is
cover
Tim
that.
doing it? Is
Yeah.
Tim one of the?
Yeah.
he's
one of them.
So I'm like, we already got a YouTuber on there.
Yeah.
I'm stoked. He's
Yeah.
I mean,
gonna do
I
great.
think the thing none of us are really allowing ourselves to talk about is, but that SpaceX has said they're going to do is the intercontinental flights. I mean,
Right.
the fact that
that's gonna make your life easier, Teague.
I know, right?
I mean, you've already been
I
to all
was
7
talking about
continents,
that
but
with the launch yesterday. So just to finish kind of the story or the segment, the booster fell back into the Gulf, and then the Starship, which separates from the booster, went into lower Earth orbit and then traveled all the way around to the Indian Ocean from Texas. And that took approximately 40 minutes to go around the world.
Yep.
So I'm sure that there are people out there that have done this math, or maybe Elon's already done this math.
Yeah.
But how much would a ticket cost, do you think,
Well, he
do
said
New York to Beijing? Or
he thinks it would be the price of a first class ticket today to do that from, say, LA to Shanghai in 25 minutes.
so
I
which
mean-
is what, like
$6,000, something like that. I mean, not cheap, but
yeah.
if you can get there in 25
Saving
minutes,
so much time.
so much
I mean,
time.
time is money.
And we're not
Yeah,
using
for
jet
real.
fuel. I mean, at that point, we're just using methane. So, like,
Right.
it's going to be carbon neutral. I just think the idea of being able to get to the other side of the world to have lunch is
Yeah.
going to be a game changer, because it's already a game changer that we have airplanes. I mean, that's
Yeah.
amazing, right? We don't take 2 months on a ship, but I don't think we're allowing ourselves to actually imagine this is probably going to happen in the next decade.
yeah.
You could conceivably have dinner and watch sunset every 2 hours for the rest of your life. If you had enough money. Like, how crazy is that? You're just like, oh,
I love the
oh, what a
sunset.
beautiful sunset off the Amalfi Coast. And then you do it again. Oh, what a beautiful sunset off the coast of Tokyo or whatever. And then, what a beautiful sunset off the coast of LA. Off the coast of Florida, then back to the Amalfi Coast. Like, that could happen, and it wouldn't take, and it wouldn't be 5 days. That'd be 1 day.
Yeah.
where you got to experience the sunset and 5 times. I mean, what? That's nuts. That's never happened before. We invented the train, we invented the plane, we invented the Concorde. I think it's almost possible with the Concorde.
Yeah.
But this is way faster.
Yeah.
22,000 kilometers an hour, I think, at the peak. Yeah.
You're a ballistic missile, heading to go enjoy your life, as opposed to
So what's a
nuking
bigger
a city.
game changer, Tesla or SpaceX?
I mean,
tough.
because
I mean-
we haven't even
Or
gotten
Energy
to,
X?
Energy X fits
Been there.
into all of these.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that we haven't even gotten into, I think, the big part of Tesla, which is the autonomous cars, because I don't think we as Americans really want to think about giving up our cars.
Or let me one up you. Optimus, their artificial
there's lithium in
intelligence
Optimus
robot.
too, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Elon said that he thinks I don't remember the exact date and number, but by 2040, there will be 1 billion humanoid Tesla Optimus robots that are all operating off of artificial intelligence that are helping the workforce, helping, in a number of ways.
Yeah.
Aren't we living in an incredible time? And the fact that we're not talking about this more often, that we're talking about other stupid shit.
True.
Like,
Yeah.
why are we talking about this other stupid crap?
Yeah.
This is the stuff we should be talking about, because it is going to happen. It's not like there isn't an Optimus walking around right now as we speak, a few miles from here.
Yeah.
It's actually happening.
Like
And
literally a few miles from here.
exactly.
In the Tesla
and one day they're just going to walk out of that factory and into our lives.
yeah.
And the crazy part is, as humans, we didn't talk about the car until I think most of us would argue it was too late, and we already, put freeways through our cities and, ruined the character of all of our American cities.
Or look at the airplane. I mean, when the airplane was basically about to happen and people in the industry knew it was, you had like the New York Times saying this won't happen for, what was it, a million years?
A million years.
Yes.
It's like, that's where the brain goes like,
7
this
days
will
later.
never happen.
And then it was 7 days later.
Yeah,
Something
and
that he
you're
flew.
just like-
Yeah.
And then just a couple decades later, we're all flying.
Right.
Yeah.
And a lot of that is usually just because there wasn't a focus on flying until you got a little bit of promise on that, right? Like, there was Leonardo da Vinci or whatever who like envisioned a flying machine, but he didn't really get it, and
He didn't get it right, actually.
he didn't get it
His
right.
Science is wrong, but-
His science wasn't right, but of course he was in, Renaissance Italy. That's not, you're not going to necessarily invent a flying machine. But as we got, into, the turn of the century, and you're like, okay, we have, engines that could actually provide enough power to get you in the air. That's when it all started to happen. And, all it took was, it only took a couple of guys who owned a bicycle shop to make the first airplane. And, I think that a lot of people think that airplanes are really complicated, but I've watched YouTubers make their own airplanes out of foam board and electric motors now, where they're able to fly around, and they get in trouble with the FAA because they weren't supposed to do that. But they were able to do that in their backyard because it's not all that difficult. It's just we didn't have a lot of the technology that we needed back then. And this is the exciting part where Energy X comes in, because with electric cars, it was like, oh, we could do a golf cart. So we had golf carts for decades, right? Of an electric golf cart, of course. Uses a 12-volt battery, which we got tons of. It's in every car. And then it just takes, Elon Musk and JB Strobel to be like, hey, we have like better batteries now. We put them in our laptops. What if you took 8,000 of these batteries and put them in an electric car? And it's like, well, nobody's done that before. And it's like, and they were like, yeah, but like, what if you did? And then they did, and they made like the most kick-ass electric car ever. And it's so, I think that that's kind of the really interesting part here is now we've seen the explosion of electric cars from all sorts of car brands, and
We're at over 1 million electric cars a month.
That's
yeah,
wild.
it's super wild.
I don't care how good batteries get. I'm slightly against like any kind of flying cars, because maybe I'm just not envisioning it right. But
Let's
I don't want to
talk
get
about
hit
it.
with a
Yeah.
hubcap while I'm walking
Yeah.
around.
No, I think
And now I
it's
got
a
to look
good
at the
point.
sky. I already have to look at the street.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it is
How
funny.
do you regulate that?
I don't know if we're going to get flying cars,
Yeah.
because once you solve autonomous cars, you can hopefully
Solve a lot of traffic
solve
problems.
some traffic problems. I know that everyone wants to say, as soon as you induce demand and blah, 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 sure. But I do think that between tunnels and,
most
autonomous
traffic
cars,
is because humans are driving.
and we,
Yeah.
We have very
suck.
I mean, that as soon as a car leaves a light, like it takes you a few seconds to catch up to that car, right?
True.
Computers don't have that.
Humans
problem.
are made to run after animals
Yeah.
till the animals got exhausted,
We're
and then we
inefficient.
killed them and ate them.
Yeah.
We weren't supposed to sit with a wheel in front of it. Like, it's super cool that we can do that, but like, we're not that great at it. There's some people who are amazing at driving cars,
Most of us suck.
but most of us suck.
And I mean, 1 million people die every
and a
year on the road.
highway,
True.
as we know, is not a racetrack. Some people treat it as a
Wait, so
racetrack, but
we talked about going to space, but you're telling me that you wouldn't drive a flying car if you like had it?
Here's the thing. I trust myself. I don't trust other drivers like flying past my window.
well, you wouldn't be flying. You wouldn't be in charge. It would be
You'd
autonomous.
probably be
almost certain.
autonomous flying cars.
I think so, because
What if something falls out of the car?
That is
a
the argument.
screw,
That
a
is
bolt?
the argument.
yeah.
So there's this company. There's obviously companies trying to work on flying eVTOLs, electric vehicle, vertical takeoff landing.
Pretty
right?
cool.
There's this one company out there that I really like called Jetson.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
You guys
Have you
know
flown
about-
in one yet?
Pretty cool.
No, I haven't.
That's
I
definitely
haven't.
something I can picture you with.
It's like a
That's
personal drone.
manual. Yeah.
I went out and I met the CEO and the CTO, who are the co-founders, and I was trying to get them to let me, but they're like, "No, it's not ready. It's not safe." But this guy who invented it, it's a one-seater that has four blades that lift up.
I
It's
sat
like
on one
very
of those.
small.
I'll show you.
And he literally flies to work in his little electric vehicle car.
Pretty solid.
In Italy, like over kind of like some trees and mountains. But there's this video of the first person flying to work in their flying car. And it has millions of views.
I feel like as an investor, we should make sure that Teague does not do this.
I remember you were the first one that told me about Icon aircraft back in the day as well. There's a few.
Oh, there's a lot, and I think that the use case doesn't necessarily come down to coming and landing at your house. I think that what it will come down to is kind of in cities where you want to get over traffic and you want to pay a little bit more, but you don't want to pay. Like in New York City right now, there's a couple of piers that are like helicopter piers. And there have been a number of companies that have gone in and out of business, providing basically transportation to and from downtown New York to like LaGuardia Airport. And I can't afford to do that. I might do it like one day, like once, right? But like there's people who are just like, oh, it's 3 hours to get to the airport. Screw that. I'm going to, 25 minutes in a helicopter. Helicopter is extremely complicated. A electric takeoff and landing vehicle is complicated, but it's not quite
a lot less
same.
complicated.
It's a lot less stuff that can go wrong. You have multiple propulsion units. Like you can have some backups and stuff like that, which is really nice. And, I know a helicopter can do like an auto rotation. I still don't want to do like an auto rotation into the Hudson. I'd rather just keep flying if a bird hits my propeller or whatever. So I think that is going to be I'm not going to say a big thing, but I think that is going to be one of the big use cases is like getting from point A to point B, skipping a lot of traffic and going a lot faster. I think that it's going to bring down the cost so much because you might not need a pilot, which was a huge expense. And a helicopter pilot, you don't need one anymore. Great. And then all that maintenance and fuel can kind of go down. It's going to make stuff like that a lot more affordable to the point where I might consider doing that. I'm not going to be, thinking like, oh, I'm going to just have to get an Uber to the airport. And
I think that, I would definitely consider myself an Elon fanboy. But I think that this is actually one of the few places that he's wrong. That going down into tunnels is a better solution than going up into like
rises.
Into the air. Flying cars.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I mean, he's trying to lower the cost of tunnel boring with the boring company, but the amount of tunnels that you would have to dig at certain levels, and maybe he has some ulterior motive for that. Like, okay, maybe you need that on Mars, right?
Totally.
Because Mars doesn't have an atmosphere, and you actually need to build all the infrastructure below Earth, but or below the surface on Mars. But for the Earth, it just makes more sense to have flying cars, I think.
So much more energy, though, that you have to put into getting the car to go up as opposed to...
And that's endless, yeah.
I think it's
like
a balance.
anything else. If you have better batteries that have more energy.
Well, it's not necessarily the batteries
that still need to be solved.
It's the where do you get the energy to charge the batteries as well? Because it's like if I could have a car that can travel underground and it's going to use something like 200 watt hours per mile versus something that's flying, which is going to use, I don't even know, probably in the thousands of watt hours per mile. It's like, so imagine a solar field that needs to like take care of my car to get to work. That can probably fit on my roof. Most people can like take care of their commute in a Tesla with all the space that they have on their roof. Once we start talking flying machines, like
less sustainable.
More and more
There's just a lot
solar
more
panels.
Freedom to operate.
No, I totally agree.
Like,
and I think that there will be...
Roads are constraining. Tunnels are even more constraining.
And I'm not saying that these things aren't going to like, they won't happen. It's just, it's a different kind of economic equation for, again, like, oh, I need to be there now.
But Teague, I think you hit. I mean, the tunnels is all about Mars. He was just trying to come up with an excuse to figure that out. So when he gets to Mars,
because it'll take a while to. I mean, it is taking a while to develop it. And and I think that you're right. There isn't this monster use case for it right now. Like obviously Las Vegas is a great use case because
it's a good test.
It's a good test. And we've been hearing about some other places that want to try it. I think that someday they might get to the point where they would do it.
I mean, he's using it at Gigafactory, Texas right now, right? They're digging across under the highway. So
I don't know. But I do hear what you're saying. Like, I think that there's room for kind of all
He just
of this
wants
stuff.
to fly in a. Come on, he just wants to fly.
He's
You know,
wanting to
Teague.
fly
This man a flying car.
The Jetson is sweet. Yeah.
Mhm.
I just think we need to hire someone at Energy X whose sole job is to keep you safe.
Yeah.
You know,
Maybe, maybe.
to go with you on all these crazy trips.
Nice. Well, guys, the name of the show is Extraordinary, and we like to have extraordinary people on who make their own rules. It's so cool to see people that have built a business like yours around a passion and become, like I said, the go-to source. You guys are experts on Tesla, among other things. Thanks for joining. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. This is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Thank you guys.